That if your beliefs, be they religious, spiritual, or secular, require you to be shielded from discomfort, they are not a source of courage, they are a form of sedition. If your sense of meaning is built on avoiding the bitter so you can feast only on the sweet, it will not sustain you in perilous times. Because Black history is sweet and bitter together. The blues and the benediction, the shackles and the shout, the mourning and the miracle.
Well, hello, beloved listeners, and welcome back to In the Meanwhile. I'm Marcus Harrison Green.
And I'm Nora Kenworthy.
Nora, now I gotta know, did you subject yourself to the narcolepsy-inducing 4chan comment thread that got a spray tan and a teleprompter that was the State of the Union address? It very much felt like a Netflix documentary called Democracy Gaslight Edition.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, because I'm a masochist, I sat through it, and I think I deserve emotional hazard pay, a spa voucher, and possibly a CDC warning label for future viewers. My
Fair,
God.
fair. No, I got to miss it actually because I was teaching,
Oh,
which was felt really lucky.
yes. You're fortunate. You're
However,
blessed, a blessed soul.
blessed to be working late at night. I do feel like there are, like, several things that are definitely siphoning off my will to live this week, though, Marcus.
When when aren't there? When aren't there, Nora?
Yes. I think, for example, the possibility of a new Surgeon General in the United States who is wellness influencer, Casey Means. She
Oh
has
my
no
God.
active medical license. She didn't finish her surgical residency. She obviously thinks vaccines hurt children, that birth control is unsafe. Um, and my favorite detail is that she reportedly found love at 35 by hiring a psychic, wishing on
Huh.
pennies, and sweet talking trees. Which,
Gotta find love where you're at, I guess. I
I
don't
mean, I
jeez.
I support women thriving in whatever way they need to, right? Like we all have gone a little bog witch this year, but
True.
I do prefer my public health officials to believe in like randomized control trials, not random woodland encounters.
I would say that that would sort of be, yes, just a baseline, hopefully. I jeez, no, I gotta say you are not wrong about things competing to zap you of the will to live. There's nothing that says steady hands on the wheel like replacing epidemiology with astrology.
Fair,
Uh,
yes.
jeez, I
Fewer clinical trials, more crystal energy. Um, yeah, I feel like we're only steps away from, like, saging ICUs the next time they fill up because of
I
measles or flu.
my God, that is, it's a joke, but I mean, that's pretty close to probably happening. And I gotta say, Nora, like, with all the oxygen in the room perpetually vacuumed up by the president's latest freestyle rant slash troll drop, and also the various memes that have been going around with, FBI Director Kash Patel,
Yes.
chugging beers with the USA men's hockey team. It actually does feel refreshing that you're pulling this into focus,
Oh, yeah?
because I think yeah, I gotta say, 'cause I think because while everyone's busy live tweeting these various spectacles, and I get it, they're super funny, and yes, Idiocracy is just our life right now. It's not no longer a film, are about this, dystopia that is the United States. I just think that, so often the things that are actually important to our day-to-day lives, like,
Mhm.
these quote unquote boring, congressional testimonies or what have you, where, you bring in the potential Surgeon General to answer just basic questions such as do our flu vaccines actually, do they actually have some level of efficacy? And she like, hems and haws about it. Um, I think there's a points where we need to step away necessarily from this spectacle and the shiny objects and look at the things that might affect us and whether we survive the shiny objects or not.
Mhm. Yeah. And, like, I will point out, like, she still has to be confirmed, not that we all have a lot of faith in our congressional representatives these days, but I cannot stress this enough. This is the part where democracy kind of requires us to do more than doom scroll, right? Like,
Yes.
please call your senator, any senator, borrow a senator if you have to, and please tell them not to hand the nation's public health system over to, like, vibes and wellness coalitions.
Yes. Yes.
Because, like, RFK is bad enough, what with the sauna vids and everything,
Oh god,
um,
yeah.
but we are, like, 2 Senate votes away from replacing the CDC with, like, a medieval apothecary who's like, "Have you tried leeches to fix your humors yet?"
Oh my god. Yeah, it's pretty bleak in the and
I would really prefer my healthcare system not to, like, cosplay the dark ages right now.
I I would as well, but, here we are nonetheless. Just, to quickly, briefly, circle back to the State of the Union, one thing you definitely did not miss was any mention of Black history.
Oh, yeah.
Not a whisper, not a drive-by citation, not even a shout out to Black MAGA on the
Mhm.
way to the applause line. There's glaring omissions, shall we
Did
say.
Trump even invite any Black people to his State of the Union?
I that's a great question. I don't know that for certain, but, looking looking out there, it didn't look like
No, I'm sure all of that was just a totally innocent oversight though, Marcus, like, completely accidental, like, when you forget your wallet at dinner, just whoopsie daisy, centuries of contribution that slipped the mind, right? Because what are
it.
the odds that Black History Month in a country literally built by Black labor and resilience and genius and unpaid overtime and unpaid reparations, just didn't happen to come up for Trump.
Yeah, forgive me if I am fresh out of benefit of the doubt coupons here. Look, this is in his, return to office during his first year. We've seen that Black Lives Matter Plaza in DC got jackhammered like it was a pothole. The ground mural was scrubbed as if asphalt has amnesia. The same administration also took swings at the National Museum of African American History and Culture. Um, there have been Black historical figures such as Rosa Parks and Jackie Robinson that quietly disappeared from federal websites. Funding for HBCUs has gotten squeezed. Of course, we've talked about it, and we'll talk about it again, that DEI initiatives have been rolled back, like they're hazardous waste or something. And then surprise, a huge swath of the federal workforce has gotten shown the door in cuts that just so happen to land disproportionately on Black workers. So
Yes.
yeah, it's it's been a not a lot to celebrate, I guess, from this
Yes.
administration. So just be quiet about it, I suppose.
Yes.
Anyway,
No, but not here. Here we are
Th-
going to name it loud. We've got all the receipts. History is
yes, we
not
do.
optional for us. We're going to talk about and celebrate Black people, not just because the calendar is flipped to February right now, but because history matters. It keeps mattering. We are all living it daily. And because it is Black History Month, somewhere as we speak, probably a brand is nervously tweeting a quote from Martin Luther King, that they probably didn't read, and if they're Target, they're probably not even doing that. But
Very true. Very true.
but we are determined not to just do performative hashtags, and call it reparations here.
Right. Nor we are committing to sustained acknowledgement, not the whole once a year, the algorithm told me to care version, but we are doing the real ongoing muscle memory type of remembrance here.
Mm,
So I will say that, what really hit me recently, just around Black history, and not Black History Month, but Black history, was that my mother went to an anti-racism training for her job this week. And I'll
the
say, first of
irony,
all,
Mark.
right. I know what you're gonna say, Nora, but no, but I'll say, first of all, just imagine being old enough to have personally witnessed civil rights history and then having to attend a corporate seminar about it. That's like Beyonce being assigned, to a group project on stage presence or something. It's just, it baffles the mind. What my mother really said that stayed with me though, when she was just relaying back about the training, was that how many memories were triggered from her
Hmm.
and that she sort of revisited, at being 9 years old and watching Rosa Parks get let off of a bus in handcuffs. She was
Wow.
9
Oh my god.
when that happened, and she just sort of retraced watching the beginning of what would become the Montgomery bus boycott.
My god, I didn't realize she had that history, that's incredible. I mean, I think for so many of us, we think about these, like, historical moments with this I think we're primed to think about them with this, like, sepia tone, sort of like, that's the past, and it's grainy and
Right.
distant and politely resolved and, neatly heroic, but, like, for her,
Right.
that was, like it was in HD, it was her life as a child. Um, it was probably confusing and frightening and clarifying all at once, that's incredible.
No, it really is, and, what she said, it made the connection between, then and now feel painfully clear for her. Like,
Mm,
even, at this time period where it feels like we're sliding backward, and, like, progress has hit a pothole, our history truly has always been this cycle of pushback, resistance, organizing, exhaustion, and then sometimes, and hopefully this will bear fruit here for us in our generation as well, there's breakthrough.
mhm.
And I look at it like Black history truly teaches that we are the descendants of people who kept showing up. And that's sort of the through line, I think, between the freedom struggles of the past and the freedom struggles we're seeing right now today.
Yeah. Yeah. And what so many people who have come on this podcast, like Jelani Cobb, have said to us, right? That we are living embodiments of the history we inherit. And so
Yes,
we have to not just keep acknowledging it, but keep talking about it, keep it alive, right? Keep celebrating and critiquing and remembering, not because it's February,
right.
but because we live in history. And right now, like as you said, it is tapping us on the shoulder.
It very much so is, and I'll say if a 9-year-old girl could witness that moment and grow up and to be an 82-year-old woman
Mhm.
still believing the fight was worth it, then
Yeah,
yeah, we have no excuse to keep fighting, right?
yeah.
It isn't easy and it won't be, but, we sort of inherit that persistence and, I'm glad to continue to persist with you, Nora,
Yes,
and our listeners as well.
and props to Mama Green.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And props to you this week. I think, you bring these lessons forward in the speech that we're sharing today in such an extraordinary way. Um, you talk about Black history as not a scrapbook or a collage of memories, but for us, a warning label, a survival guide. Um, you talk about how Black history is telling us to pay attention. It's giving us receipts right now, and it's also giving us strategy. It is a
Yeah,
masterclass in how to live and organize and love and resist that we are seeing picked up and learned in real time in our communities as an increasingly authoritarian government starts showing us its full face, right?
yeah,
And there's no way for us to bury our heads in the sand, but the people who are consulting history right now, the people who are saying, "We've seen this flavor of nonsense before," and said, like, "Cute, hold my beer." Like, we gotta learn from those people right now.
absolutely, and that's what I hope that, people can take away from my speech. It just, I just wanted to remind folks that inheritance isn't just trauma, it's also tools and civic muscle memory, if you will. And so, listeners, if the present moment feels loud and unhinged, probably because it is, history says stay sharp, stay funny, and never let a regime think it's the only one with a microphone.
Amen.
And this is a speech I gave at Westside Unitarian Congregation Church in West Seattle, Washington, on the very day that the my beloved Seahawks won the Super Bowl. Here's the speech.
I'm so excited, Marcus. This is great.
Thank you, Nora.
Good morning. And thank you, choir. And thank you all for being here today on this Super Sunday. A few people already reached out to me this morning saying they would be here, but they already begin imbibing in pre-celebratory rituals. So I appreciate all of you for holding off for a few moments more. Well, I suppose it's redundant and brutally obvious to tell you that we live in heavy times. The kind of times that can make a person feel like the world is pressing its full weight onto your ribs, like the air itself is demanding an explanation you do not yet have. And yet, I want to begin with something even more obvious. We are here. We are all still here. And that fact, simple as it sounds, is not neutral, it is not accidental, it is not guaranteed. For Black people in this country, we are here has always been a sentence braided with struggle and stubborn joy, with endurance and invention, with hope and protest, with love and a kind of righteous refusal. Just 3 days ago, I was 1,300 miles from home, in Minneapolis on a reporting trip. I was standing at a vigil for Alex Preddy. And while hundreds of people tried to bear what feels unbearable, grief, fear, rage, disbelief, there was a second name in the air too. Renee Good. Another neighbor, another life, another death at the hands of a federal agent, another rupture in the moral story we keep trying to tell ourselves about who we are. I saw a community trying to make sense of the kind of violence that rearranges the nervous system. I saw people gathering in the cold as if gathering itself was a form of defiance. But I have to tell you, I kept thinking, why am I here? Why am I in Minneapolis when I live in South Seattle? Why am I standing under a sky so cold it feels like it could crack when 2 young Black men had been violently killed back home in Rainier Beach? And their families were just beginning the long, disorienting process of learning how to breathe again in a world that took their sons. I had left their vigil less than 24 hours ago. I left one grief to stand inside another. But what studied me in that passage was a lesson Black history offers in perilous times. That you cannot keep grief neatly contained in its own neighborhood. You cannot file tragedy away as someone else's problem simply because it happened somewhere else. Our neighborhoods are not islands. Our pain is not local only. And the machinery of the state does not respect city limits. On the flight back from Minneapolis, I realized the hard truth that our holistic history teaches us. We are not separate. The grief in South Seattle is not contained by geography, and the loss on a Minneapolis sidewalk does not belong only to Minneapolis. In a country where death so often comes at the hands of those sworn to serve, we are reminded that dignity is not inherited from the state, it is claimed by the people. And the work of claiming it does not begin in policy documents or press releases. It begins in whispered conversations between neighbors who understand they cannot wait for permission, that survival is something you practice together. Standing at that vigil, I saw a young white man wearing a shirt that read, "Stop killing us." It stopped me in my tracks. Not because the message was new. Black people have said those exact words in 1,000 different ways, in marches and in mourning, in sermons and in songs, in testimony and in tears. And we have been met so often with denial and distortion and dismissal, with the quiet violence of being told that what we are seeing is not what we are seeing. But this time, the shirt was on a body that had historically been allowed to look away. And I felt a tangle of emotions I can only name as bitter complexity. Grief that it so often takes spectacle, blood, and viral video for the warning to be heard. Recognition that maybe, just maybe, the testimony is no longer containable. That the cry, "Stop killing us has moved beyond the people most harmed and into the mouths of those who once had the privilege not to see. It is a cruel thing to watch the country awaken more fully to violence Black and brown communities have been naming for generations, and to realize that awakening is hastened because 2 white people were killed. It forces a reckoning with whose pain has been treated as exceptional and whose has been treated as background noise. Relief and sorrow, hope and fury. The human heart is large enough to hold contradictions, even when this nation is not. We like to imagine history as a museum, something we visit, something we learn about, nod at, and leave behind. We want history to behave like the past tense was. But Black history keeps insisting on a different grammar. It insists on is. It is present tense. It is not a sidebar. It is a central thread. Black history is not simply Black people's story. It is the story of America. Which means if you do not know Black history, you do not know this country. You might know nostalgia. You might know the story you wish happened. You might know the version that lets you sleep at night. But you don't know the thing itself. And in America, memory has been contested terrain. Whoever controls the memory controls the moral story. That is why there are always people who don't want us to tell it. There are always people who want to gag teachers, to ban books, to outlaw divisive concepts, as if truth is a toxin and honesty is a threat. But here is the paradox. The more they try to erase it, the more they reveal what they fear. And what they fear is not guilt. What they fear is consciousness. A conscious person is dangerous to an unjust order. A conscious community is even more dangerous. So I want to say something directly, especially in this church setting, that if your beliefs, be they religious, spiritual, or secular, require you to be shielded from discomfort, they are not a source of courage, they are a form of sedition. If your sense of meaning is built on avoiding the bitter so you can feast only on the sweet, it will not sustain you in perilous times. Because Black history is sweet and bitter together. The blues and the benediction, the shackles and the shout, the mourning and the miracle. We are living in a moment when fear is normalized, when truth is contested, when community is strained. And in such a moment, Black history does not simply ask to be honored. It asks to be learned from, wrestled with, carried forward. Because Black history offers not just remembrance, but instruction. It offers us a map for how to live when the conditions are not of our choosing. Think about this. For centuries, Black people have had to act like immigrants within the borders of their own country, seeking asylum from the very nation that claimed them. And still, we built, we organized, we sang, we loved, we raised children, we formed mutual aid networks before mutual aid was a trending phrase. We practiced community care before the state acknowledged we had the right to be cared for. We have always been asked to survive a country that insists on misunderstanding us and then somehow to remain human inside of it. That is Black history. But Black history is not just endurance, it is imagination. It is the ability to envision a world that does not yet exist and to behave as if it is possible anyway. That is also truly beloved community. Not a slogan, not a bumper sticker, but a practice. And if you want to know what that practice looks like, well, then I can tell you what I saw in Minneapolis. not as an abstract theory, but as a living thing. I met people building rapid response networks, not to incite violence, but to bear witness. As one organizer told me, we're bringing back a framework, and we're going to stand it up. And even if people are not ready for it, we will fill the holes that they can see. Even if institutions fail, the people will fill in the holes that they see. That is the Black historical tradition, whether the people in Minneapolis name it that way or not. A tradition born from the hard truth that sometimes the state is not your protector, but your threat. So you learn to depend on each other. You learn to treat a stranger like a potential ally. You learn to build survival with your hands and your relationships because no one else is coming. We are living at an inflection point in this nation. And the question before Seattle, the question before this congregation, the question before us all is not whether we are progressive in theory, compassionate in branding, or eloquent in moments of spectacle. The question is whether we will practice communal integrity when it is inconvenient, uncomfortable, and costly. Because communal integrity is not measured by what a community says about itself. It is revealed in what a community does when its neighbors are afraid. And this is a question of conscience, of shared humanity, of the values we claim to hold. It asks whether we truly believe what we say we believe about human dignity, about inherent worth, and about who counts as our neighbor. To engage Black history honestly is to be forced into those questions. And if you stay with Black history long enough, it will do something else for you too. It will destroy the lie that America has told about itself. Not to make you cynical, not to make you feel guilty, not to make you feel hopeless, but to make you free. Because you cannot be free inside of a lie. It's only since the 1960s that you could even argue that this country has tried to apply all are created equal beyond white men. And if that is true, and it is, then we are a young democracy in the ways that actually matter. Which means the work of inclusion, the work of repair, the work of beloved community is not behind us, it is in front of us. It is in front of us. Black history says you don't get the future by wishing, you get it by building. And building requires a certain kind of power. You see, there's power that is rooted in fear, fear of punishment, fear of loss, fear of chaos. And fear-based power is loud, it is theatrical, it is bombastic. It is always looking for an enemy. But there is another kind of power, power rooted in love. And I don't mean love as a sentiment, I mean love as action. Love as responsibility, love as courage, love as the decision to protect what is human in each and every one of us. Power based on love is 1,000 times more effective and permanent than the one derived from fear of punishment. That is not naive, that is historical. Fear-based power requires constant suppression. Love-based power multiplies. Fear-based power isolates. Love-based power organizes. Fear-based power teaches you to hoard. Love-based power teaches you to share. And if we are going to make it through what is coming, whatever your political analysis is, whatever your prediction is, then we will need love-based power, not as an abstraction, but as an infrastructure. So let me offer a few instructions, plain ones, practical ones, drawn from what I saw, from what I've learned, and from what Black history keeps teaching. First, ask not how are you, but what are you doing? Not because we don't care about feelings, but because feelings without action become a lullaby. Because the question, what are you doing, is the question of responsibility. It's the question of belonging. It's the question that turns spectators into participants. Second, know your neighbors before you need them. Not the idea of neighbors, the actual people. The ones whose names you don't yet know. The ones you pass by on the sidewalk. The ones you assume you'll meet later. Later is not promised. Third, do not wait for perfect politics to practice care. As my friend Kathleen from Indivisible would say, there are people who will be harmed while we debate purity. There are people who need a ride, a meal, a phone call, a witness, a door held open, a handheld study. Care is not a reward for ideological agreement. Care is what makes survival possible. Fourth, understand that fear is a strategy, yes, but so is solidarity. Fear wants you alone. Fear wants you quiet. Fear wants you convinced that nothing can change, that your voice doesn't matter, that your hands are too small to hold anything useful. But solidarity says, bring your small hands anyway. We are building something larger. And finally, this one is perhaps the most difficult. Refuse the lie that you are powerless. Because the people who benefit from your despair will always try to sell you that as realism. But despair is not realism. Despair is surrender. And Black history is, among many things, a record of people refusing surrender. Black history is Harriet Tubman refusing the definitions of the white world. Black history is Frederick Douglass insisting that freedom is not given, it is taken. Black history is the poets and the prophets. Black history is the unnamed people, most of them unnamed, who kept moving toward life anyway. To study Black history is to learn that the world changes not because it is convenient, but because people decide it must change. And that decision is available to us, too. So I want to end where I began, with the heaviness. Because I will not lie to you. I cannot offer you the gift of freedom from discomfort, shame, or anxiety. I cannot promise you calm. Calm in these times is extremely fragile. But I can offer you something else. A clearer version of what is required of us in this moment. We are living in a season where the vision of a broken and ill country in need of radical reconfiguration is coming into clearer view for more people. And the country we need, the dawn of a country not defined by left or right, not by party labels, but defined by care versus cruelty, empathy versus dehumanization, an exclusive circle of concern versus an expansive one. That country will exist. It will exist when the people of this country want it so badly that their government will have no choice but to follow. That is not fantasy. That is how history moves. And if you doubt that, then look at Black history. Look at the price paid. Look at what was built anyway. This month, this moment, is not simply about honoring the past. It is about receiving instruction for our present. So here is my invitation and my charge. Let Black history be our history. Not as a slogan, but as a responsibility. Let it make us honest. Let it make us brave. Let it make us useful to each other. Because no matter what storms are coming, political storms, cultural storms, storms of violence and backlash and fear, we will not get through them by pretending we are separate. We will get through them the way Black communities have so often gotten through them, by telling the truth, by refusing erasure, by practicing love as a form of power, by building solidarity as if it is sacred because it is, and by choosing again and again and again and again to become the kind of neighbors we will need. We must choose. Every single one of us must choose. And soon. May it be so. Thank you.
Marcus,
Mm.
I just gotta say, that is the most extraordinary speech that you gave. I know you talk a lot about not being religious on this podcast, but I feel like this inspired a certain almost religious appreciation in me for the kinds of histories that you're evoking and the kinds of lessons that you're reminding us of in this moment. It's a stunning speech.
Oh, thank you so much, Nora. That means a lot coming for you. I know that you value your opinion very highly, and so do I. So that is it seriously, it means a lot coming from you. And I will say though I'm not religious, I guess you could call me secular religious if that is such a thing. I know it's an oxymoron,
I
but
think maybe civically religious is
there you go. Okay, that is a better phrasing for it. I uh that being said, speaking of civically religious, um, I want to go ahead and get into our 8 ounces of joy this
yes.
week,
We need
Nora.
them.
We definitely do. We definitely do. Um, but both of them, at least on from mine, are very much sort of civically focused. One is that the state of Maryland is actually considering a $25 an hour minimum wage.
That is amazing. Oh,
That is so freaking awesome. I mean, everybody's talking about affordability. One way to maybe help with that is to ensure that people actually can, afford to live. And I, I need to actually go and consult the numbers, but I think it was a Duke economist who said that if the federal minimum wage had actually kept up with productivity, we would be somewhere around 20 to $25 an hour at a bare minimum.
bare
It might
minimum.
Yes, at a bare minimum. So, I mean, it could, I think that was like 3 or 4 years ago, so
Yeah.
I'm assuming that it's probably higher at this juncture. But, kudos to Maryland, and we'll see if they actually pass it, but, I would hope that they would, and hopefully this is something that can then, scale to potentially other, states as well.
Yeah.
This would be definitely would be a bonus here, and I
Yes.
will tell you if it actually does pass, I will then share that as a as an 8 ounces of joy in the near future.
And
So
since we're
yeah,
invoking history this month, I just wanna point out that it was, Seattle about 10 years ago that really pushed for a $15 minimum wage,
yes,
and that spread to so many other places, right? So these policy wins don't just stay where they start, but they
absolutely.
become standards by which other cities and counties and states start to kind of, step up, which is really exciting.
Yeah, well, I do wish some other states would step up in how Illinois had stepped up, years ago. I didn't actually know this until this week, nor I'm ashamed to admit, but I did not realize that Illinois state schools, they are mandated to teach Black history. Some people would just call that
Yes.
history, but a quick history lesson. The reason that they are mandated to do so is that it was because of student protests. You had students who were
Yes.
actually walking out of school to make sure that Black history was to ensure that that Black history was taught in schools. And I will say, I mean, it's to me, that's a continued example of that. We say often that young people aren't either doing enough or you know uh, they're focused on the wrong things, this and that. But I mean, this is another example and a preponderance of evidence that young people can and often do change things that need to be changed, including a very sort of rickety status quo that that very much needs to be transformed and altered. And so, um, yeah, I hope that some other some other states that let's just say that their history curriculum is already a little bit bereft of not just Black history, but any type of true history. I hope that
Yeah.
they get the memo here on this one.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yes, may that also be a policy that spreads across our country.
yes, yes.
No, but I truly, like, I pull so much inspiration from students all the time. I mean, I know I talk about that a lot, but one of my 8 ounces of joy this week is that I've been teaching this, class to mostly first-year college students, this, session, um, around collective care and survival, and one of the things that students are doing are, they're exploring zines and zine-making
Mm,
culture, as a way to understand, communities that have really shown up for each other.
right.
And I gotta tell you, my students are, like, coming to me and being like, "Have you heard about punk culture in Seattle in the '80s? It was so radical." And then one of my other students was like, "I found this zine on anarchism." And another student's like, "I found a zine about, like, Angela Davis and how, like, rest is radical." And I'm like, "You guys, yes."
I
Um,
that's what I do love about, like, Gen Z and some of the students even that I was tutoring at the youth tutoring program and at the Lake Washington apartments where it's like they have just discovered, they've just had this grand epiphany that,
yes,
apparently nobody else has had,
I know.
but, it is amazing to see life through young people's
I know.
eyes, I'll say.
Sometimes they're like, "Oh, I just learned about 9/11," and I'm like, "Oh my god, you you were you were born after 9/11." So some days it's
Jeez.
better and some days
Yeah.
it's worse. But, no,
Mm.
they're I'm amazed by the eagerness of this generation for, like, actual handmade radical things.
Yes.
They're, like,
Yeah.
frustrated with the internet. They are totally tuned into the ways that authoritarianism is controlling their access to information, and I am just really excited to help them discover new tools. So
Yeah.
that's one of my pieces of 8 ounces of joy. My other one, do I get two? You had two.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
This is, we were equal, we believe in equity on the show, Nora. I
I
had
feel like
to
if you've got more than one, you got to share it.
absolutely.
um, my second piece is I actually found out that my book won an award this week. It won
Oh my gosh.
an award from called the Procedure Awards, which is actually awarded for medicine and medical writing. And one of the things that was really meaningful to me about this is that it was really recognized by doctors and
Yeah.
doctors who are really trying to change healthcare in the United States. And sometimes I'm
And
not.
doctors who have their license still.
Yeah,
Yeah.
also that, yeah. Um, but, sometimes when you write a book that's, like, really critical of a field, you don't expect that field to, like, appreciate it, and
Right.
so it was extra nice to have that recognition and just, like, the knowledge that people are reading it and thinking about it, so I don't often toot my own horn, but that was a nice one.
Toot away, Nora, and just share your truth, man. And like I would say, it's as that is in some ways that book is what is sort of the origin that a story for our podcast in
Yeah,
terms of what brought us together. So it's one, the award is just well deserved. Two, you should get all the awards for that book. And
thank
then
you.
three, I'm glad that somebody who actually truly um, is concerned with public health and actually is qualified to operate in the public health sphere is actually getting some recognition. So, yeah.
It also cracked me up because one of the, like, things I got in my, like, swag box for the award, this is, like, the classic, like, middle-aged lady award swag, is I got a a specialized pill case.
Oh, what is it? Yeah, I know that for our listening audience, there, can you describe it? Can you describe it?
Oh, yeah, it's like a really fancy metal, case that has the award name on it and some art, and it holds lots of pills, which I
Okay.
immediately was like, "Oh, I have so many pills that I can put into this, so it will go to good use."
You could well, maybe you can buy some of the supplements that the, potential surgeon general sells. I'm sure I'm sure she has plenty. I'm
Yeah.
sure she has plenty. Anyway.
All
Anyhow,
right.
shall we go ahead and wrap it up for this week,
Good
Nora?
a time as any, Marcus. Well, if this week had you staring at the sky like, "Hey, God, are you clocking in anytime soon?" Or I don't know. Don't worry, we are all there. That is what mass tort law is for. Somewhere there's a plaintiff's attorney drafting a class action on behalf of literally everyone right now. And truly, we knew you could be listening to any podcast in the world right now, and yet you chose to be here with us, marinating in some ethically sourced, locally grown, righteous fury. We're so glad you're here.
Yes, we are, and thank you, dear listeners, for microdosing on Black history with us today.
And Black
We
Joy.
and Black Joy, and Black Joy. We genuinely could not produce the show without you. Podcasts do not run on vibes alone. We've tried. So if you are able, please consider making a donation at the link in our show notes or at inthemeanwhilepodcast.com. Think of it as supporting independent media, but way, way cooler.
Yes, and a Himalayan-sized thank you to our producer, Jessica Partnow, who somehow edits this chaos into coherence, and to Ahamaluo for the music, because nothing says competent co-hosts like a good intro track. These two are the reason that we sound like we have a plan every week.
And we are also a multi-tentacled content octopus, y'all. So you can find us on YouTube, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky.
And if you're feeling anxious, overwhelmed, or like you're one headline away from moving into a yurt, same girl, you are not alone. We're right there with you, doom scrolling through life's storms. New episodes drop every Friday. And until then, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you in the meanwhile.